Hello, everyone. I'm Link, and always joined with me is Hogthrow. Say hi.
Hello, what's up?
Yeah. Welcome to the Fifth Down College Football Talk, episode number 3, where we're discussing this past week of the 2021 first official season. No, not week 0, but the actual week 1. We had a lot of games. A lot of almost upsets, a lot of actual upsets, a lot of teams looking very sloppy, a lot of teams looking like they have no direction, if you will. There's only a few actually, can you say? I mean, there are only a few teams in the top 25 that actually looked good, right?
Yep, a lot of the ones that I expected to do well just completely burned down. The only one that I did predict do well that actually did well was UCLA, so that's nice, I guess.
Yeah, I was right about the Clemson one, but we'll talk about that later. But first, when we talk about the what happened, we'll just go to the day, what the potential or the upsets in general, and what happened. Let's just go to we have to start on Saturday because there was already a big win on Friday for the Virginia Tech Hokies, taking down number 10 UNC 17-10 in front of a packed Lane Stadium, and man, it felt. Watching them do Sandman with back at full capacity is so surreal, and it was such a great sight too. And there were people like knocking like, oh man, thinking about how many kids, thinking how much COVID's going to spread there. But no, according to what I've read, Virginia Tech is like, if you wanted to attend like the football games, you have to be vaccinated if like you're a student. And I don't think I've seen any reports about how there's like a massive COVID outbreak at Virginia Tech. But Sam Howell had an interception outbreak. He threw 3 picks in a kind of ugly UNC loss. I think they were projected to win by about 20. However, I mean, there was just times where they kind of lost control of the game and just kind of couldn't really... They were kind of, I guess they were used to playing in empty stadiums last year. And they just kind of like the crowd just got in their heads. They tried to come back, but Sam Howell threw a really like on their final drive when they were trying to get something, but he threw a really nasty interception when he should have just thrown the ball out of bounds. Like he was on one leg. He was like the defender was grabbing one leg. And he was trying to still get it out and try to make some play, but just throw it out, man. You gotta learn. You can't try to make a play every play. Sometimes just throw it out for the sake of, being safe. And sorry. And guess what happened? They lost. And very disappointing because Sam Howell is a highly he's a highly what's the word I'm looking for? He's hyped.
Touted.
Yeah. He was hyped going into this year. He was already on like a lot of people's big boards when it comes to the NFL draft. Potentially going to be one of the top quarterbacks out of this draft. And after that game, it kind of looks ugly now. But they'll have a game. They do play. Who do they play? I think they have a. Oh, they play Virginia. No. I'm sorry, they don't play Virginia. That's week 3. They play Georgia State. That should be a good game to try to make up for it. Because this was a pretty bad loss for UNC. Very disappointing. As one of the ACC powerhouses lost this week, but it won't be the last. As we'll get to later through this show. But let's go ahead and start. Let's go back to finally start on Saturday. Big noon games were what everyone had their eyes on until Bama Miami eventually came on. Penn State, Wisconsin, and what could only be described as Big Ten football in its purest form.
Yes. As someone who watched that game, all 3.5 hours of it, it might have been the worst football game that I've ever seen.
I watched it with you. I was there with you watching this game. It was
a nightmare. The only game I think that I saw worse than this one was the Baylor TCU game back in 2015. Where there was a gigantic downpour in, I believe the score going into overtime was like 7-7. and there were more punts in that game than first downs. That's the
Yeah.
only game comparable to this.
Just to put in perspective, folks, the game went scoreless going into halftime, 0-0. I think Wisconsin's kicker missed a field goal early on. They were gonna try.
Penn State's.
I think it was.
It was Penn State's long-range kicker who missed a 26-yard field goal.
Oh yeah, and I think there were. Wisconsin went into their red zone, but I think a fumble happened, and
Yes.
it was a pretty miserable game to watch, and that's pretty crap considering that was like the big noon game. That was gonna, welcome to the college football season. Here's two top 20 teams. Wisconsin had 3 turnovers throughout the day. It was 7 penalties each for each team. Not very good sign. Wisconsin ran the ball efficiently with forgot his name, Malusi?
Yep, transfer from Clemson who looked very good.
Yeah, he looked really good, and really the only good part about the Wisconsin offense, only scoring 1 touchdown throughout the entire game. And, Penn State didn't look any better, honestly. It was just an ugly game to watch. And I don't think it was an excuse. I don't think there can be an excuse for anything. I mean, it was beautiful weather. Camp Randall was jumping. It was very...
Yeah, but it did not matter because
beautiful...
Wisconsin just couldn't get out of their own damn way.
Yeah. It was really... It's Big Ten football. It's in its purest form. We're back. Penn State did win, and I'm pretty sure we'll discuss this going into the new polls, but I think they swapped positions, even though I think it's totally undeserved, but we'll talk about that as we get to there. Another big game, which it didn't really look like a big game going into it, and for the first half, it really didn't, or really going into the... going into halftime didn't really look like a big game. It looked like a typical OU football game. And then and then the fourth quarter happened. Let's talk about their game against Tulane, which they got an advantage because they were the home team, despite Tulane originally going to be the home team because of that hurricane that hit the New Orleans area. I mean, Oklahoma... They had an excellent second quarter. They had, Spencer Rattler, was doing really well. He threw an early interception, which that got people really.
Rattler was very inconsistent. He
Yeah.
threw 2 picks, and he did not look that good. He wasn't horrible, but definitely disappointing. I'll be honest. I genuinely bought the Oklahoma hype this year, but it's very apparent to me that they've learned absolutely nothing. Their defense still sucks.
Too. I thought, considering the some of the talent they have at defense, and their entire offseason was dedicated to really improving the defense and creating a new culture when it comes to defense. I thought it was going to be that, but no. But let's continue on the game. But had a really good second quarter. The third quarter, they were going into the third quarter leading 40-22, and almost blew it. And they almost blew it. 2 touchdowns later, Tulane got the onside kick after the second touchdown. In Oklahoma, almost looked like they were going to lose. Almost. It was so close. It wasn't even funny. And that's pretty bad. But no, Tulane couldn't really convert on their their drive after the onside kick. I think they turned the ball over just in their first 4 downs. Really disappointing. But Oklahoma escapes with the win here. And you know what?
They did drop. They did drop in the rankings. They dropped by 1.
Yeah. And totally deserved because I don't know. They look good going into halftime. Like I said, they was okay, this looks like a top 2 team. Okay, I get it. But after that second half, I was completely wrong. Looks like they really didn't learn anything. But yeah. Any other comments about OU's almost upset?
Not really. Spencer Rattler is an overhyped average quarterback who's flashy, and OU is overrated. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, they play upcoming this week. We won't actually do picks on it because I'm pretty sure we both agree that Oklahoma will kill Western Carolina. But
who's Oklahoma's big non-conference game this year? Nebraska. They played Nebraska.
Yeah, that's next week. But yeah, it was a pretty miserable game to watch. Or really, if you're an OU fan, Tulane fans, you have nothing to. You can hold your heads up high. You almost beat number 2 Oklahoma. Good for you. But another team that had high expectations kind of flustered against another Group of 5 school. I'm talking about Oregon. They won by 1 touchdown, and they had to. I mean, they were going like in the. It almost looked like they were going to lose against Fresno State.
Yes, Fresno was leading late, but Oregon did manage to take over the game and pull out a win before disaster struck.
Yeah, it was just like I couldn't believe it. I understand Fresno's a very good squad, but I mean, just not a very good, not a very good look, especially in front of your home crowd. I hear the air quality at the game was very poor, which I don't think that's an excuse, but like, yeah. I mean, Oregon only turned the ball over 1 time, but I mean, they did have 8 penalties. That probably killed them right there. But
yeah, but great game by Fresno State. A shame they couldn't win, but it is what it is.
Yeah, but a big storyline after that. Kayvon Thibault went down in that game. What you were telling me, they thought he broke his leg, but it was just like a sprain. I'm pretty sure. And
yeah, it's a sprain. He is out day to day. He has made the trip to Columbus, so I'd say there's a 50-50 chance of him playing, but he won't be out for the whole season, so that's good at least. He'll be fine.
Yeah, and that's going to be a pretty big blow considering, I mean, we saw from Ohio State, their O-line didn't look super solid against Minnesota. That could have been like a pretty good equalizer right there in the trenches. But they almost lost, and spoiler alert, Oregon was the only team in the Pac-12 North to win this week. I don't know. I mean, that kind of says a lot right there. But we'll talk about the Washington game in a little bit, but because we're still trying to go chronologically. But some of the games we won't talk about though. But Cal lost to Nevada. Oregon State lost to Purdue. Stanford lost a pretty ugly game to Kansas State. Washington State lost to Utah State. Kind of the Mountain West had their number. Or in it was an ugly day for the Pac-12. I mean, the South actually looked good. Their only loss, the only team that lost in the South was Arizona to BYU in the game in I think it was Las Vegas. Power 5, am I right?
Yeah, Power 5.
All right,
I mean, the Pac-12 is a meme. That's just how they've always been.
Yeah. In terms of, there weren't many other big news in the big noon games. We saw. You want to talk about? That's a big storyline from this week. How many FCS upsets we saw? One of them was Holy Cross to Connecticut, but I mean, honestly, kind of saw that coming considering Connecticut's situation as a football program, and
yeah, the UConn's a walking corpse at this point essentially, so it's not too surprising.
Yeah, we thought we were going to see one in Lincoln, Nebraska, when Fordham led early in the first before Nebraska just scored 52 unanswered. Oh, I'm sorry, no, it wasn't. They didn't score 52 unanswered. They scored 45 unanswered. But yeah, it was 7-7 going with in the middle of the second quarter. So, but yeah, Nebraska gets a big win there. Now we can move on to one of the premier games of the week, and I'll let you take over because you watched every minute of it. Bama versus Miami.
Yeah, as a longtime Alabama fan, I was very happy with this game. Miami did kind of scare me because they were a team with a very good quarterback at the helm. Derek King is elite, but he was also coming off a torn ACL, so we didn't really know what he was going to look like. He looked okay. I wouldn't call him good, but as I said, that's expected. He hasn't played a game in a while. So, as I said, I was worried about a slow start, and I was worried that this offense, which has arguably the least amount of experience of any offense in the Saban era, we pretty much lost our entire receiving core. Our running backs are new, a new quarterback, a new tight end. 3 of the offensive line starters did come back, but other than that, the offense was pretty much completely new. But they looked very good against a team with a very good defense. So I watched the whole game through. I'm very satisfied with where Alabama is, a lot more confident than I was heading into the game. And it was a good time. I think we're good.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't as bad as people thought it was going to be. I mean, it wasn't close at all. No, it wasn't close at all. But, I mean, Miami actually managed to score 13 points out of it. I'm pretty sure it was all in garbage time. But, Bama got 44 out of it. I mean, it looks like it's going to be another dominant year of Alabama, and I think they're already a shoo-in for a playoff position. But, kind of typical Alabama stuff right there. But that was one of the marquee events of the afternoon. Another one I would like to just mention this. The winner about the same time. So Cincinnati beat Miami of Ohio. I think of the Battle of the Bell. I think it's the name of it, but that's pretty
correct. It's the second or thirdest oldest rivalry in the country.
Yeah. But Desmond Ritter, 20 for 25, 295 yards and a touchdown, but he also got an interception. Talk about a game for him. Miami, Ohio, maybe not good this year, but I mean, still at the level of just Division I football, that's a very good stat line right there.
Miami of Ohio was the defending MAC champion as well, though.
Oh, they were. Well, that makes it even more impressive. But we'll talk about Cincinnati. We'll talk about Cincinnati a little bit because there's an interesting tidbit that was brought up, or that was what am I trying to say? There's a very interesting new tidbit about them and some other teams we'll talk about later this episode. I'm sorry for like teasing stuff, but you have to keep listening. Promise. But another game that was kind of a rout in what people thought it wasn't going to be. You thought it was because you had high expectations on Iowa, but they beat Indiana 34-6. Big win for them. Penix Jr., 3 interceptions, 0 touchdowns.
Not great.
Including 2 of those turned into touchdowns. If I remember correctly, yeah. Iowa dominated all day. It was ugly. I think, 233 total yards for Indiana. It was a pretty bad game for them, as that game took them unranked.
I am not surprised by Iowa winning. I am definitely surprised by how much they won by, though. Iowa was a team that I was really high on, and I did pick them to win the Big Ten West. And I'm looking at that pick's looking pretty good right now. I was banking on Iowa because they have an elite defense, arguably the best in the country. They have gone, I believe, 23 straight games without allowing 25 points or more. So they're very good. To put it lightly, right? You do not score on that team. The run game is going to be elite. The tight ends are good. So everything that's normally there for Iowa at its best is all there. The quarterbacks is still a little questionable, but if the quarterback is above average, I think that's a title contending team. Genuinely, as crazy as to say about Iowa, but I'm very high on Iowa, and I was rewarded with a win. So I'm gonna keep rolling and say they win next week, but whatever.
Yeah. Speaking of Iowa, they're playing a team from Iowa that also has a lot of expectations, but not so much after their game against UNI, which was very ugly. Let's just put it this way: it was supposed to be an Iowa State rout and just completely clobber UNI. It turned into the first four. Let's just go with the first quarter, right? Which was punt, and this is just by like how the possession ended. A UNI punt, and then an Iowa State punt. UNI punt, Iowa State punt. A 5-play, 87-yard UNI touchdown drive. That's pretty scary. Iowa State immediately responded with a field goal, and it was 7-3. Iowa State losing in the first quarter. Then they managed to get a touchdown, a pretty solid drive. UNI responded with a field goal, and then they were going into halftime. Iowa State scored a field goal, I think, going into halftime, 10-13, and then Iowa State didn't really, UNI didn't really have a chance to answer for the rest of the game. But it was a very close game for no reason at all.
Definitely disappointing from Iowa State. I was expecting a lot more. But it is what it is. They have a chance to go this week.
But we saw that a lot with week one. It's just like, are these teams just like kind of showing like fraudulence, or just a week one? Okay, maybe we'll have it together by week two. Like, what do you think?
At first, I would say it was fraudulent because it's like the Penn State Wisconsin game is like, whatever. I mean, it's horrible. It's one of the worst games I've ever seen, probably the second worst. But it's like, two teams. But then you see Ohio State, who did not look that great against a team they should have easily beaten. You saw Oregon. You saw Washington. You saw Iowa State, etc. And it's very apparent to me that something is going on. Now, in my opinion, I think it is just rust. But for whatever reason, nobody seems to be playing on all cylinders, right? There's very clearly problems with how these teams are playing. I think it'll be, I think it'll be fine. But that's the big story so far. I think it's that something's clearly off. I just don't know what, but that's how I see it.
I guess it's with after coming from a pandemic season. I mean, they gotta get back to normal, and for some reason, teams are finding it easy to get back to normal. So. We had a couple ugly looking teams this in the top 10, and we'll talk about some more. But we saw the first game of the Steve Sarkisian era for Texas. They beat UL by 20 points, which I had UL at a potential upset right there, but I mean, Texas got it done. But no, they're not back. But we'll see. I don't know. With how Oklahoma played, with how Iowa State played, I mean, they had one of the more impressive victories out of the Big 12 this week.
Yeah, 20-point rank to win.
I mean, Kansas State had a good win. Kansas got a win. I think that's just, in general, a positive for them. I think the biggest win was TCU beating someone. I forgot who they played. I think they beat them by 40 points. I think it was an FCS school, too. Speaking of Kansas, they're currently playing right now against Coastal Carolina. Which, I mean, I bet there will be a lot of memes coming out of that game. But, next game we'll talk about, we had, in a game you called, once again, you called right, UCLA win over on LSU, 27-38, very good win for UCLA.
Yeah, it was impressive. I had UCLA as a potential dark horse candidate for the Pac-12. I still have it now. Um, LSU was a team that I was quite a bit down on compared to everybody else. LSU, along with Penn State, were the two by far most commonly chosen bounce back candidates. So, I was obviously I'm an Alabama fan, so I'm going to be a little biased because I dislike LSU. I didn't really buy that they were number 16 level good. The defense had way too many questions on it. We also didn't know who their starting quarterback would be. And it's very apparent to me that I was right about LSU. They might get better as the season goes on, but their defense is still horrendous, which is the same problem as it was last year. I need to see more from them for me to consider them to be relevant at this point. I have heard a lot of LSU fans saying that if they don't do well this year, Ed Orgeron will be fired because on top of losing this game, they're also in the midst of an NCAA investigation through Title IX, which Orgeron is supposedly directly implicated in. So he's on a very thin leash.
I thought that was like just with the Les Miles stuff. I
It
didn't know
wasn't. Orgeron's a defender in the case now.
Oh, well, good luck with that.
Yeah, so LSU is in deep trouble right now, on and off the field. So that's all I got to say about them.
Well, let's talk about, UCLA got a good ranked win over number 16 LSU. Let's talk about a team that had the opposite problem, a Pac-12 school getting embarrassed by an FCS school when they were ranked, and a team that I had potentially winning the Pac-12 North, Washington. Dylan Morris, starting freshman quarterback, and he played like one. 3 interceptions on top of his 226 yards. Ugly game. They scored early in the first quarter, and then that's the only scoring they did throughout the entire game. After that, it was Montana took over in the fourth quarter. They were up 3-7 going into the fourth quarter, and then Montana had a touchdown and then kicked a field goal, and that sealed the fate. Washington never responded back. And what better way to try to get that miracle comeback than an interception on the first play? No, it was the 6th play of the drive. But yeah, horrible start for Washington. They play Michigan this week,
which will be a really interesting game because those are two teams that I had at around similar places.
I mean, considering Michigan actually beat someone last week, West Michigan, I think Michigan's got a really good chance here to beat Washington because there was nothing impressive about the Washington team after that loss. All right. Before we get to the main event of the evening, let's get to a game that no one saw except for me. I said it in the first episode of the show, and some of you listeners know out there. If you follow my Twitter, or if you're a friend of mine on social media in general, I'm a big Vanderbilt fan, right? As I said in the preview, I have high expectations on Clark Lee and how he can handle the program. He's a former alumni. He comes from a good background. He was very good at Notre Dame in the defensive coordinator role. I was very high on this. We're coming into a game against East Tennessee State, which we were projected to win by 40 points. I thought it was going to be, okay, Vanderbilt's going to win. I'll turn on Georgia Clemson. Nope! I couldn't have that. Nope, not at all. A horrible loss. One of the worst losses I've seen from Vanderbilt. I'm talking about the worst. This is the worst one. This is worse than, 2015 Temple, which was Derek Mason's debut game, where we got embarrassed at home by Temple of all teams. This is worse than, 2018 Alabama, where we lost 59-0 on our home field. This is worse than 2018 Florida, when we blew that big lead we had. Immediately. I think we're up by 3 touchdowns. And then we blew it in one half. And we never tried to come back. This is worse than any game I saw last season, including the game against Missouri, which everyone had their heads up their ass about Sarah Fuller being a part of the team. That was the only story from that game. The other side, the offense sucked. We couldn't get anything going. We scored 0 points. This is worse than any game I've seen from Vanderbilt. But yeah, Ken Seals had a horrible game. Left off right where he did last year. Just his confidence is completely wrecked. He had 2 interceptions. One of them which almost went the entire distance of the field for a touchdown. We almost scored. We almost scored a touchdown. Except Ken Seals threw an ugly ball in the end zone. And then they almost went all the way down the field and scored a touchdown on us until it got called back for a unsportsmanlike conduct. Because yes, ETSU was taunting us because that's how bad we played, and they were totally justified in doing it. We were the first ones to score, this is just like the Washington situation. We were the first ones to score, and we never scored again. Except they got a touchdown. We didn't. We just didn't. And the cherry on top of the sundae, when Ken Seals, the final touchdown of the game, just tripped over and just fumbled the ball in a ETSU scoop and score. Literally my version of the butt fumble. That's how bad it was. And
yeah, it was horrendous.
What did Clark Lee? What was his? What was every Vanderbilt sideline reporter reporting? What was the cameras focused on? By the way, guys, I knew it was bad from the start because for some reason ESPN Plus was the home of the game, or ESPN SEC Network Plus. That was supposed to be the game. That's what it was advertised on my cable box for, on ESPN SEC Network Plus. It didn't show up. I instead got the Florida A&M game, which was also being, or no, not Florida A&M, Florida Atlantic, which is a good win for the Gators. So I had to go to a stream. I had to go to one of those janky-looking streams that if you click on one advertisement, your IP address is exposed to the entire world to watch this football game, and it was not worth it. Not worth it at all. It was a horrible game. Let me just say this. Clark Lee, he didn't look like he was motivating anyone during that game. He looked like he was just sitting out there coaching, just taking the check. Our OC did not. He was trying to run a 2-quarterback spread no huddle system, and it just didn't work. Because Mike Wright took some snaps. And, I mean, he took very few snaps because they said, okay, never mind, we're not doing 2 quarterbacks anymore. Ken Seals, we're going with for the remainder of the game. And, man, what a great quarterback rating of 6.
Wait, are you serious? It was 6?
It was 6. 20 for 35, 195 yards, 2 interceptions, a fumble, 6 QBR. Mike Wright went 4 for 9 with 41 yards and a 6.3 QBR. Awful. It was an awful game. One of the most embarrassing games I've ever seen from any program. I can't make fun of Tennessee. I can't make fun of the Vols fans. You know, after that Georgia State loss in 2019. I can't do that anymore. Because we have we have a worse loss. We didn't lose to an FBS school from Sun Belt. We lost to an FCS SoCon school who weren't that good. We lost to literally a team in Johnson City, Tennessee. And it was the worst, like I said, the worst loss. I don't want to ramble on about it anymore because, Jesus Christ. And you know what? I'm not looking forward to the game against Colorado State. And you know what? Colorado State's in a similar state than we are. They lost against South Dakota State their first week. But you know what? Screw it. South Dakota State almost won the FCS championship last year. I don't think ETSU won 5 games in their season in the FCS this past spring. They were, like I said, they were a mid-pack SoCon team, while Colorado State played literally the runner-ups of FCS football. So
If I may add,
and if that's not embarrassing enough, Colorado State has a Jesus Christ. They have a 76% chance to win according to FPI.
so if I may add in, Vanderbilt has that game, as well as the game with UConn, and those two games might be the 2 or 3 worst programs in the country this year. I think when you look at it.
I'm going to be completely honest. We may be the last team UConn will ever beat. I'm not saying this year, ever, because I don't think their football program's surviving for that long. Do you? Do you see what's going on this offseason? Or what's going on this season from them? They are not playing down. I think they're just going to shut it down. I think that's what they're trying to do. But, yeah. I know you didn't watch the game. But, your thoughts?
Honestly, I wasn't surprised by an upset. Vanderbilt was at the bottom of the barrel. They went winless last year, obviously. They looked horrible. And of course, they brought in Sarah Fuller as a PR distraction.
Do you know what I said after that game against ETSU? That was everyone was memeing. It was a PR move. That was the only reason Vanderbilt would get people to watch their games. And I defended it. I was like, okay, all our kickers were out or didn't want to play this season due to COVID and all this. And I try to defend the move as best I can. Now I don't know how to defend it. It probably was. Got nothing to say about that.
What I think is genuinely disgusting, though, is that Vanderbilt has every single thing that you could want in a really good program in terms of potential.
Let me just say, someone put this really well over the offseason. It was a tweet, but I'll try to paraphrase it if I remember correctly. You could write a college-level essay on how differently ran the Vanderbilt baseball program is from its football program.
Yeah, I bet you could. Yeah, absolutely.
That's how drastically different they are in terms of success. Vanderbilt almost won the College World Series, except they choked it away to Mississippi State. Vanderbilt lost a game by 20, didn't even score a single touchdown against East Tennessee State University, a school that not everyone actually knows exists. Not even the best school in their conference.
Yes, I
would argue not even the best FCS school in the state of Tennessee.
Very true, but
3, 2, 1. All right, I'm sorry. Have to be in a new location now. It's just interruptions on parts of other people. But Hog, continue what you were saying about Vanderbilt.
So my point about Vanderbilt and why it genuinely disgusts me that they're this bad is that they have pretty much everything going for them as a I would say mid to at minimum solid program. You're in the fastest growing city in the U.S. Great nightlife, great city, etc. You have great academics, which is bigger than people think it is. Because at that point, you basically have an exclusive market in that for the SEC, because none of those other schools are anywhere near Vanderbilt. So kids that genuinely care for their education have a possible destination in the SEC.
And don't forget the parents. They want their kid to go to a very good university.
Exactly. Vanderbilt is an extremely good university.
But
obviously. So they have an opportunity in the SEC.
This may be controversial, but you want an excellent example of Vanderbilt done right is USC. Say what you will about their current Clay Helton era, but they're just like Vanderbilt in a couple ways. They're in a great location. Except they have Los Angeles, which Nashville can't compare to, but I mean still a very great metropolitan area, very good academically. But the thing is, they just have a very good football program to complement it. Vanderbilt does not. And that sucks because Vanderbilt can. And it proved for 4 years under James Franklin that it can.
Yeah, they pump the money into it pretty easily.
They have the money. We spent $20 million in this offseason just upgrading some of the facilities in our at Vanderbilt Stadium. But yeah, that's just Jesus Christ, man. I don't know. I don't know. Every college football fan who's ever said, "Oh, I think Vanderbilt should get kicked out over Clemson or Florida State," I say, that's stupid. But now, I'm kind of like, okay, whatever, sounds good. Because I don't know if we can compete as a Conference USA program
Anyway, how
anymore.
about we move on to Georgia and Clemson?
Yeah, let's move on to Georgia Clemson before I have an aneurysm. Let's go on to the big game of the night because number 2 versus number 3, I think. No, number 3 versus number 4, I think. No, number 5 versus number 3. There we go.
Yeah.
And what was thought to be supposed to be the game of the year ended up being a 10-3 ball game with Georgia winning.
Yeah. JT Daniels did not impress me. Clearly, kind of stuck where they were last year, where it's like I can't really tell if they're good or not. Because Clemson does have an elite defense, but the fact that Georgia could not even score an offensive touchdown does concern me. Because the whole point of this offseason was to go all in on offense, because of course Georgia has an elite defense year after year, but the offense has always been a problem. But now, this was your prime test against a team that was just as good as you were. Now, of course, they did win, but they have not proven that their offense can get the job. Clemson, they looked pretty bad. Their defense was elite, but their offense looked even worse than Georgia's was. DJ Uiagalelei looked very bad, although to be fair, his offensive line was probably the main reason why that's the case. I believe Clemson was sacked 6 times. 5 or 6, I believe.
7 times.
7.
They
7,
won
yeah.
in the trenches. Clemson only put up 2 rushing yards. The D line killed it for Georgia.
Yeah, the D line won.
Like
In that game, Clemson's defense also. It was a defensive effort.
Yeah, if you looked at Georgia's defensive stats for the entire game, you would have thought Georgia killed them by 20 points or so. But no, they only got 10 points. They only won by a singular touchdown.
It was a pick six. It wasn't even an offensive touchdown.
Yeah. It was everything. It was so weird because we thought after Penn State, Wisconsin, it was like, okay, Big Ten, haha. We're going to show you how 2 big programs like the SEC and ACC handle it. We got the second best SEC school versus the ACC school. It's going to be an absolute classic matchup, and it was for a particularly different reason. The entire first quarter went 0-0. The game went into halftime 7-0. And the only points Clemson managed to score were in
a field goal.
A field goal in the fourth quarter. So,
most people I know had Clemson. I had Clemson because the games, but it seems I was wrong about this one.
Yeah, I had Georgia winning because I had a lot of I had expectations in the offense. Ironically, the defense was the one who carried the entire ball game. So, that concludes the Saturday games, but those weren't the only games that were left after Clemson, Georgia. Notre Dame had a game against FSU, which shouldn't have been as competitive as it was, and Notre Dame almost blew that lead.
Yeah, but we got a great game out of it. Probably the best game of the week.
We had a great game and a great quote by Brian Kelly of the Notre Dame. Did you hear about what he said after the game?
Yes, I think this team should be executed. Rightfully so. They looked horrible.
Yeah, I mean, Florida State almost had to come back. Notre Dame did not. It was going to the third quarter. Notre Dame up 18 points. Touchdown Florida State. Another touchdown Florida State. Field goal by 43, and then it went into overtime. I mean, Jordan Travis, who was the starter, he didn't look particularly good. He had 3 interceptions on the day for 9 for 19. Mackenzie Milton went in later in the game, and I mean he was the UCF transfer that had his it was a season-ending injury. What was it, last year?
3 years ago.
3 years ago. Oh, well, dang. I'm sorry, but he came in. It was so the emotions were high. He threw a few passes, managed to get him in a position to with the with the game tying field goal, and then overtime happened. Let's talk about that. Florida State had the game right there, right? A third down, incomplete pass turned into a field goal situation. He's going to kick the field goal, the kicker for Florida State. As soon as he kicks it, the whistle's blown. Apparently, and I don't know, I don't exactly, um, I couldn't describe what happened because apparently there was a challenge because I think there was a challenge for the previous play because they thought Mackenzie Milton fumbled the ball.
I believe so, yes.
And if that happened, that would mean like Notre Dame would have gotten the field goal wouldn't have happened. And also, it was a weird situation. Or wait, I'm trying to remember because was it? I don't know, but anyway, but
I didn't watch
as soon
the
as
full
that
game.
happens, like as they throw the challenge flag, Florida State kicker kicks it between the uprights, and Florida State's believed to have the lead, and he doesn't. The call was reversed. Okay, now I remember. They said it was a fumble, which set him 5 yards, I think, back to where they would have actually been if it was an incomplete pass. That call was reversed, so they actually got the 5 yards back from that. But they couldn't get the field goal, though. He kicked it and missed it. Thing was wide to the left. But what happens right the very next drive? Notre Dame ends up winning by that the key field goal that would have had the game go into a second overtime or potentially a Notre Dame touchdown. It was wild, and Notre Dame escaped with a win.
Yeah, but a little bit more. Notre Dame has found a quarterback. That's very apparent to me. I believe his name is like Jack something. He looked fantastic. Like he looks way better than Ian Book was.
Yeah.
But I think they found a quarterback's biggest problem. Ian Book's just wasn't very good.
Yeah. It was a necessary ugly for Florida State too. I thought they were gonna die because that third quarter they were throwing out some very nasty did you see the roughing the kicker one where he roughed the punter where he just clearly almost took his leg off. And for some reason that only went 5 yards instead of what it would usually be. It probably a game misconduct. Because that was a extremely unnecessarily hard hit. And I thought at that point, yeah, Florida State's giving up. They're trying to take people's heads off. Game's going to be over. Notre Dame's going to win. But no, I don't know what happened. It was crazy, man.
It was a very weird game. It was a very weird game.
Yeah, it definitely was. Notre Dame escaped with the win at Doak. And finally, the final game. A part of the Chick-fil-A kickoff in Atlanta. Louisville versus Mississippi. 4 players were rejected for targeting in the first half alone by Louisville. I'm pretty sure.
No, Ole Miss got some guys ejected too.
Yeah, there was a lot of ejections, but honestly, didn't matter. Ole Miss had a great day. Matt Corral had a really good day, 22 for 32, 381 yards. Toronto Drummond had a very good day for Mississippi. 9 receptions, 177 yards with a touchdown. Ole Miss, it was going into halftime 26-0 for Ole Miss, and they never looked back. Louisville got some pity touchdowns at the end of the fourth quarter, but at that point the game was over. Ole Miss won the game, and they managed to get themselves into the rankings.
Yeah. Yeah, it was about what I expected. First quarter, and then Ole Miss would blow it away after that, which that's pretty much what ended up happening.
Yeah, and I expected this. Ole Miss was a team I had high hopes for, and it was a good win for them on the Labor Day game. But so now that concludes about all the games we'll talk about for Week 1. In terms of the top 25, here let's see how that shook up. Bama stayed at number 1. Georgia jumped Oklahoma and Ohio State to get number 2. Ohio State went to 3. Oklahoma moved down 2 spots after a pretty embarrassing game against Tulane. Texas A&M moved up to 5. Clemson dropped to 6th, which that's respectful in the way. Cincinnati went up 1 spot. Notre Dame and went up. Iowa State got punished after that ugly loss or that ugly win against UNI. The biggest movers, Iowa and Penn State got a lot of support from the polls. Iowa, I think justifiably so. Penn State, I don't think justifiably so. I don't think.
Yeah, that game was way too horrible for me to. The thing is, I do. Penn State is legitimately back, or if that was just an aberration of a game
You know
where
what's
it was
crazy?
just two
Penn
ugly
State
teams.
went higher than Wisconsin or what that when than where Wisconsin was. They were 12th. Penn State went up to 11th from 19th.
That's very stupid.
And you know what's
That's
pretty bad?
dumb.
Florida didn't move at all.
Yeah,
They had a good
but
win
but
against.
Florida has a chance. Like if they beat Georgia.
I mean, yeah, but that's later in the season. But for now, I mean, I feel like Florida should be in like at least the 12th place. Oregon was 12th after their pretty embarrassing or almost lost against Fresno State. In terms of other movers, Texas went up to 15th after their win against Louisiana Lafayette. UCLA went from 16th to from non-ranked to 16th. I don't think they were receiving votes either. This is a talk about a huge jump. We'll talk. We just said, LSU was 16th, but UCLA got a higher position than LSU was at when they beat them. But then again, it was a very convincing win for UCLA. You can't argue that, right?
Absolutely, it was a team that was way more talented than UCLA objectively by every margin. They beat the crap out of them.
Yeah. Um, another move. Wisconsin moved down to 18th. Virginia Tech and Ole Miss, 19 and 20th. They were both unranked going into the season. Season. I think Mississippi was receiving votes though for the top 25. Utah went up 3 spots. Miami went down 8 spots. Uh, Arizona State 23rd. UNC falls to 24th, and Auburn gets the last spot. Teams receiving votes: TCU, NC State, UCF, Liberty, and LSU. So, yeah. The coaches poll was a little different though. I mean, Oklahoma State found their way in the rankings at 23rd, while Auburn kind of got shafted. So, yeah, that was your top 25 polls. Before we get into week 2, we got conference realignment news once again. A couple of teams were mentioned here in today's episode, but well, we got a new shift in the Big 12. BYU, Cincinnati, UCF, and Houston are going to be joining the Big 12. I think it's about the time Oklahoma and Texas leave. What's your thoughts on that?
It's pretty interesting. I'm glad that the Bearcats are going to be in a major conference. That is huge as a Bearcats fan. Of course, UCF and BYU and Houston are all going to be in there as well. But I think it's a decent move by the Big 12 because it's very clear that Oklahoma and Texas are on their way out. So I do think it's a decent idea, or not, but I like it. And that's pretty much all I feel about it. I'm just happy.
Finally, West Virginia fans have a game they can reasonably travel to. I mean, Cincinnati. I mean, this is. I think this is a little bit more ridiculous. I mean, with UCF from Florida, like the only two that really make sense in my mind are BYU and Houston. I honestly thought they would pick up SMU also because of Southwest Conference or the Southwest Conference, but no, they went on and they picked up. I think 3 of the last. Well, other than Memphis. No, wait, hold on. Let me think about that. I'm pretty sure they picked up 3 of the past, not of the current past, but 3 in general, past 8 American champions: Houston, UCF, Cincinnati.
Yep.
I thought Memphis got shafted though. I thought Memphis was going to get in, and they're not too far away from like. I mean, they're on very border of Tennessee and Arkansas, so it wouldn't be too much of a departure because I mean you only have to cross Arkansas to get into you know Oklahoma and Kansas and Texas and whatnot. But this is also probably going to bring up some news about the Conference USA. They probably will be losing members as the American will raid their conference again for those so valuable big market teams. Rice is potentially gone. Charlotte maybe potentially gone. I'm not sure about Charlotte though. Um, they may pick up Buffalo. Could be interesting. I'm not sure.
Yep. Yep.
They may try have to go after Army and have both Army and Navy be in the American. But they're losing four. They're in the future. They're losing four schools, or they already have lost one of them in Yukon, but they're losing three more, and those three are some of the top dogs of the American. So this is going to hurt them because I mean we've been saying all power. Some fans say power six, blah blah blah. But now I mean they're losing three of those teams that helped form this argument of a power six, and they're moving to power five. So we'll see how that unveils in the meantime. But we'll wrap it up the show. We'll do some week 2 picks of our top marquee games. We got a couple of them. Big game on noon. I can't believe this is a noon game. Oregon, Ohio State. Now, both of these teams didn't look very. Ohio State looked more impressive than Oregon to me. But, I mean,
Neither of them look great.
yeah, neither of them did look great. Oregon potentially losing a big key on defense may put them in a bad position coming into the Ohio State game. But we don't know. I have not. I'm looking through Twitter. I have not seen anything about his. It's probably going to be like a game time decision, or maybe they'll
Yeah.
and probably they'll announce it on game day.
Yeah. Kayvon Thibault is probably the second or third, maybe even the best player in college football, which is huge because
Yeah,
Ohio State's offensive line is probably the best offensive line in terms of pure talent. So my opinion of this game is down to if is he playing or not. Because if he is, I think Oregon absolutely has a chance. If not, they don't have any chance because they just don't have the defense.
yeah, but I mean, if you look at this situation, let's say he was playing against Ohio State, you got to think, okay, then Ohio State's probably going to eliminate the running game's going to be destroyed right there. But I mean, you still have C.J. Stroud, and you still have that great group of receivers for Ohio State. I still think going into it, no matter what happened, no who's injured on Oregon or not, Ohio State would win this one.
I agree. I have OSU winning by 14. I think it'll be a good game.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I mean, it's a noon game, big noon. Hopefully, it's bigger than last week's noon game. Hopefully, it's as
Oh God! Don't even mention that game in my presence ever again.
Next game. I think this is the game day spot. Pretty big game from a team that impressed a lot of people last week, and a team that made a lot of people question them. Iowa State Cyhawk Trophy. Who you got?
I got Iowa.
Currently, Iowa State University has a 56.7% chance to win.
I'm rolling with Iowa. I said Iowa would be my big dark horse, along with UCLA, and I'm rolling with Iowa still.
You're on with Iowa. The last meeting they played, Iowa won by a measly 1 point, and I don't think let me look. I think Iowa's won the last 5.
Something tells me the game's gonna look pretty similar to that one.
Yeah. Iowa State, honestly, they kind of disappointed last week. I mean, that could have been a situation where it was a, week 1, you don't really have a lot or don't really have all your ducks in a row. But even then, Iowa really impressed me. Am I sold on them yet? I'm not sure yet. But we'll see. They play Iowa State, and I think they're going to win on the road. It's going to be a really good game. In terms of potential upsets, let's talk about two teams who are currently like in a situation to get upset, and the spread's not very in favor of them. First, we have Texas, Arkansas. Arkansas had a uh, kind of questionable game against Rice, where they end up uh, in the first quarter they didn't look very impressive, and then like they started turning on the Jets, and they end up getting a good win over them. Texas was almost in the same situation, and who do you got for that game? Do you still have do you have Texas beating Arkansas?
This game I think could be a potential upset alert because I like what Sam Pittman is doing at Arkansas. He had Arkansas had no business being as good as they were last year. But I really like Pittman, but I do think Texas wins. But I could very well see Arkansas winning it.
Yeah, I get that. I think it's. I mean, it's the spread's only got them by Texas by 7. It's going to be a good game, and you know these two programs they've had long history with each other. There's still a lot of hate between them, even though they're in current different conference. Well, they're about to be in the same conference yet again. Or once
Yeah,
again,
which will be good.
yeah. So honestly, I think Arkansas has a chance. Like Texas had a very slow start against Lafayette, and they had a couple of key mistakes. I think Arkansas can pull off the win. They're at home. I think it's going to be a very competitive game. Another team that has a potential upset alert on them is Miami. They're playing Appalachian State, who I mean, they had a good win over East Carolina in the week 1. I think that was a Thursday Friday night game. But what's your thoughts on them? I mean, do you think
I
the
can
upset
see it.
alert is justified with Miami?
I don't know. The thing with this App State team is I don't think it's as good as past App State team thing. These are not like the old juggernaut win the Sun Belt every time level Appalachian State.
Well, last year was a down year for them, all for the fact that they didn't win the Sun Belt. But they had a good win over East Carolina.
True, we'll see. I do think Miami bounces back, so that's just how I see it. Is it a home or away game?
It's a home Miami game.
All right, because I think Miami actually is scheduled to visit Appalachian State at some.
I mean, we saw Cameron Harris. He didn't really have a good day on rushing against Alabama. I mean, this is an Appalachian State team that only put up 86 rushing yards against East Carolina. So that's going to be like
Very true.
they could kill them on the Miami couldn't get anything going on the ground. I think Miami potentially may win this game, but it's not going to be by a lot. It's going to be by at least 2 scores, or at most 2, or yeah, at most 2 scores. But let's keep going down tonight, and there's not as many like huge games as there was week 1, but there's some potentially interesting games between some unranked schools. Like, let me bring up this example. Hold on. Let me look. Okay, Missouri, Kentucky.
That's give me Kentucky.
All right, yeah, that's fair enough.
Well, the biggest unranked
biggest unranked match is Michigan, Wisconsin.
game is probably Michigan versus, of course, going to be ABC.
Or Michigan, not Michigan, Wisconsin, Michigan, Washington. I'm sorry. Both,
That's what I said. Yeah.
we just talking about Washington. He did not have a good game. Morris was horrible. And Michigan, I mean, this is a weird situation because I think a lot back to 2007. Remember when Michigan had the loss against
App State.
bad home loss against App State when they were
Yep.
ranked. They had a lot of expectations. You know what? Washington kind of reminds me of that because they had a lot of expectations to them, in my opinion, and then went to lost an embarrassing game to Montana, and now they're playing Michigan.
We'll have to see.
And the big house, I think the big house is going to be loud. It's going to be, Michigan put up 551 yards last week, and it will probably be another big win or big week for Michigan on offense. I got Michigan in that one.
I agree. I think it's pretty evenly matched teams on paper, but yeah, I cannot pick Washington after losing to friggin' Montana. I'm sorry.
All right, and our last game of the day, the Holy War, Byu Utah. BYU had a good win over Arizona last week. Utah had a very slow win against their slow starters against Weber State, but they eventually got going in the second half. Yeah, winning that one.
I'll go with BYU. Why not?
Go with the Mormons. That's a very good pick because I also have the Mormons winning that. I mean, I think it's going to be very even. These two teams hate each other. They produce some very fun games these past few years, and these two teams. That kind of sucks. That in a situation BYU never got into the Pac-12. And what's weird? I mean, the reason why BYU here's something I didn't, I guess something changed within the BYU program, or at least the Big 12 at least met their demands. The reason why the BYU didn't potentially join the Pac-12 was because of their religion. And let me
Yeah,
explain.
but you
How.
also remember that the Big 12 is not exactly very liberal in terms of like where all the schools are located.
I mean, yes, but I mean, I'm surprised they met those demands that BYU would probably send out. You can't play on the Sabbath. There were, strict games. You can't play a Sunday game period, no matter what sport. I'm surprised that, like I said, that's why they couldn't join the Pac-12. That's why they eventually left the Mountain West. So the fact that they were able to meet those demands I mean, then again, they probably were very desperate, and they're probably they've probably been over backwards to have all those teams join. But in terms of that, I think that's like in terms of very interesting games that need to be watched. That's about the extent of them. Unless you
Yeah, so let's.
unless you want to comment on Mercer, Alabama.
Yeah, that'll be an exciting matchup. Uh, can't wait to see, I'll go Alabama by 10. It's a very exciting matchup.
Oh yeah, we should also comment. Air Force and Navy are playing this week, and it's the special 9/11 tribute game. I think they're both wearing very nice looking uniforms. Rutgers is actually wearing uniforms in commemoration. I think like over 30 Rutgers alumni died on the September 11th attacks 20 years ago. It's going to be very emotional for those games. I think it's going to be very emotional all over the country. I mean, 20 years, it's crazy,
I
man.
mean, yeah, 20 years after the fact.
Yeah, and like I said, a lot of teams are doing commemorations. It's gonna be an exciting week of football though. Putting that all aside, and also the NFL starts on Sunday. Short comments about your Bengals.
Horrible. I expect Kirk Cousins to burn them because why not? You know.
At least I have expectations about my Titans. We had a team against We have a team against a all right Cardinals team with their coaches on the hot seat. But we'll holler next week with another episode. We'll see. We'll talk about if there's any big upsets. Or just any big news in general. Who knows? It's college football. Anything can happen at any time. Next week we can find out the entire SEC's disbanding or something. I don't know.
Yep.
But we'll see. Make sure to make sure to subscribe. Follow me at It's Links SZN on Twitter. Listen to the Salty Sports Podcast. We just released our NFC preview for this year, and we'll be reviewing Week 1 next week. Hogster, plug something. Plug your Twitter.
It's Meme Man. You'll be able to find me because I have a Tyronn Lue profile picture. That's that.
All right. Well, thank you for listening. On this very special day in history, as it's 9, 10, 21. Yes, 9 plus 10 equals 21. Yeah. Bad meme or something. But we'll talk to you next week.
Link currently has the profile picture for it too.
Yeah. Got kid in the spirit. All right, we'll holler at you next week, guys.
Yep. See ya.